I'm calling you out. It's time to wake up. It's time to go. It's time to take risk. It's time to do what you know you need to do.
I don't want to fall back on anything. I want to fall forward.
Stop being like a little punk living on the sidelines of your own life when you know the dreams that are in you are supposed to be already being birthed out of you.
Without consistency, you'll never finish.
Stop living in fear, start living in faith, take that action and go.
Welcome to the Bullseye Hustle Show. Learn how to make more money, create more momentum, and discover more meaning in life while hitting your goals every time with better accuracy and precision. Now, here's your host, Damian Martinez.
What's up, everyone? This is Damian. Welcome to the Bullseye Hustle Show. We got an awesome episode coming your way today. And so we're going to be talking about this topic specifically. Are you meant to be an entrepreneur or a lifelong employee? And so I know that title, it might rub some people the wrong way. And I'm totally okay with that because I'm not making one better than the other. But I can already tell if this title kind of irks you a little bit, then you probably are meant to be an entrepreneur. And that was done on purpose. Because for those who don't want to be entrepreneurs, you know, being a lifelong employee and working for someone else's dream is okay. There is nothing wrong with that. So I just want to start off by saying that because so many people think that you need to do your own thing and be your own boss. And there's just a big subculture and just pushing entrepreneurship, which is awesome, by the way. You know, I think a lot of people are creative and want to pursue their dreams and other passions, but they like the security of a job. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, if that statement of thinking being a lifelong employee and working for someone else's dream irks you at some level in any way, then you probably have the seed in you to start doing something for yourself and pursuing your dreams, pursuing your passions. And so what I'm going to go through today for a few minutes is 10 signs that shows you you're not meant to be an entrepreneur. And there's nothing wrong with that. And on the other spectrum, I'm going to be talking about 10 signs that show you're supposed to be an entrepreneur, that you're made, that you're designed, or that you've been a great employee for a lot of years, a few years, 5, 10, maybe a couple decades, wherever you're at. But now it's time for you to get going, right? And so before we get started and I dive into this, I wanted to share this clip that I found on YouTube, and I'll give credit to the video source, but it's a motivational speech by Denzel Washington. It's about 1minute and 40 seconds, and he just talks about dreams, motivation, and pursuing your passion. And so before we dive into this, I want you to see that clip. So check this out.
I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, "There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living." Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Without consistency, you'll never finish. So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances. Don't be afraid to fail. There's an old IQ test was 9 dots, and you had to draw 5 lines with a pencil within these 9 dots without lifting the pencil. The only way to do it was to go outside the box. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to fail big, to dream big. But remember, dreams without goals are just dreams.
I love that quote at the very beginning. Nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. That's with business, right? And accomplishing your passions and dreams. That comes with relationships, right? With a man or a woman. You got to take risk if you want to, take things to the next level. Traveling, right? Doing things beyond your wildest dream, right? Losing that weight, okay? Starting a new career profession, moving to an entire different city or state or country. All those things require risk, because with great risk come great rewards, okay? So let me go over 10 signs that shows you're not really designed to be an entrepreneur. And like I said earlier, it's okay that you don't want to go after that. All right. So I'd rather start with that first, because once I get into entrepreneurship, I know I'm going to get fired up. All right. So number one, you're not really meant to be an entrepreneur if you prefer following orders, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You enjoy, you don't want to be in charge of something. You just want, tell me what to do and I'm going to go do it. Right. You don't want to have that stress and that burden. And a lot of people don't like that. And that's totally cool. Nothing wrong with that. Right. Now you might be like a manager, an upper level management. So, you're giving orders, but you still like receiving orders. So that in itself, you enjoy being an employee. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Number two, you prefer working to fulfill someone else's dream. There's a lot of people like this. They enjoy serving. They enjoy being, the second, the third man or woman, behind the scenes to help things move forward. If that's you, listen, entrepreneurs like myself and other people in the world, we need people like you. And for that reason, you should be, rewarded and compensated amazingly. Now, if you're not, that's a different subject, right? Between you and your boss, or maybe you need to go find someone else's dream to fulfill, to help fulfill. But this is the thing, is that you want to make sure that you are, okay with fulfilling someone else's dream. That gives you a sense of fulfillment itself. So there's nothing wrong with that. You have to be self-aware in that, right? Number three, you like going with the flow, right? You don't like to create things. You don't like to be kind of like getting in people's faces on things. Like you just like going with the flow, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of being an employee. That's part of being a person that's part of a system. Totally fine with that. All right. Number four, you can't stand the heat when things get tough. All right. And this is a big one, because in entrepreneurship, this is not a pretty scene at times. It's not just like a straight line from A to Z. It's usually a lot of squiggly lines, a lot of reversals, a lot of circles, and then you're just getting from point A to D, and that's just the truth. That's the reality. Number five, you get stage fright and you don't like attention. So if that's called being, playing part of the background. And there's going to be some entrepreneurs that they're more introvert. They I might not really agree with that fully, but here's the thing. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to get the attention, right? You have to be, the main focus at the beginning at some level. And part of that is, it doesn't matter if you're afraid of doing it, if you're afraid of actually oh man, I don't want this attention, because I know some great CEOs that are not the frontmen anymore in their companies, but they had to be at one time, right? So but if you just totally resist that, then that's probably a sign being an entrepreneur is not for you, which is okay, once again. And I have to keep saying that because it's in today's culture, there's just so many extremes. If you just don't believe this, then you're just not this type of a person. I don't want to be around you. It's okay to agree to disagree. It's okay if you just want to be an employee. Nothing wrong with that. So number six, you don't believe in marketing or investing in yourself. You just the status quo. You just want to work your 9 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever your hours are, take your 2 to 4 weeks off a year, be around a great office staff and environment. And that's it. And guess what? That's cool as well. Okay. Number seven, you're easily wound up and worked up when you have to be in control over small details. So if you get worked up easily, you're probably not meant to be an entrepreneur. Okay. Number eight, you think being an entrepreneur is a way to make fast cash. And I see this mistake all the time. Yeah, man, I just want to be an entrepreneur, Damien, because I need to make money. I need to do X, Y, and Z. Cool. Making money is a part of entrepreneurship. It's actually a big part of entrepreneurship, but it's actually way more than that. There are a lot of other variables that come into play to make sure you're going to be a successful entrepreneur. All right. Number nine, you view taking risk as important but not urgent. And this is key. this is a variable that I tend to see with people who like they want to start something, but then it's important to them because they want to be their own boss, but it's not like a fire underneath their butt. So imagine if you put your hand on top of a red hot stove and it was set on max. How long would it take for you to take your hand off? If it's not important, you're just gonna let it burn. You're gonna be like, y'all smell that? But for men and women that are meant to be entrepreneurs, they touch it in a millisecond, they're off it. Like it's urgent. Like I'm not trying to get burned. You know, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to make quick, decisive decisions. It's not easy sometimes. It's not fun, but we view tasks as urgent. Like I need to get this done yesterday. Okay. And number 10, your goals are just to make enough money to make it, and that's cool. Like there's a lot of people that work those 20, 30, 40 years, invest in their 401k or IRA, and then have a great retirement with the money that they've invested there. That's awesome. Kudos to you. All right. So, you know, if that's part of your calling, it's like just to support someone else's dream. We need people like you. That's great. You know, but if you've been struggling with the thought of like, man, am I supposed to be a lifelong employee? Then that's already a telltale sign that you're probably called to do and be an entrepreneur. Okay, now here's where this gets me fired up. I want to show you guys this image. So if you're not seeing this, if you're just hearing this, you can go on YouTube and find the video podcast, or you can jump on Spotify. We just got approved for a video podcast, and so that's pretty dope. But this graphic is about the 2% mindset. And even with that, like I'll show you a picture of what's in my office, but I have a sign here that says 97% who quit are employed by the 3% that never gave up, right? So when my friends see that, sometimes some of them get irked because they're like, for some of them, it's encouraging, right? Because they're like, yeah, that's good. For other people, they get a little angry because they're like, you know, it reminds them of how they give up. And I'm like, hey, you know, it's not my fault. Like, you can pick up the slack, you know, and go after your dreams again. But in this graphic, check this out. This is a 2% mindset. Before we talk about the 2% population or 3%, however you view this, let's talk about the 98% of the population. You know, they like being like everyone else. You know, they're insecure. They're just surviving. They live in their comfort zone. You know, they live a dull life. They play it safe. They procrastinate. You know, they like settling for less. And that's the majority of the population. And if you're listening to this and that irks you in any way, then guess what? I'm calling you out to step out your comfort zone, to do the things that you're uncomfortable in doing so that you can see the things you've always dreamed of seeing fulfilled in your life, right? Because the 2% of the population, listen, we go for our dreams. We're confident. We explore new things. We choose happiness. It doesn't mean that there's going to be times where we lack confidence. It just means that the times we lack confidence, we find it in someone else, right? We find it in being around other entrepreneurs. We go around other like minds to help build that confidence. And more than anything, we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, you better get your crap together. Like, you got to get going. All right. You know, the 2% population, that mindset's about living a life of fulfillment. Think about the core 3 pillars of this podcast show is about, you know, more money, more momentum, more meaning in life. And fulfillment is a big key to that. This is a big one. Embracing the unknown. You know, that's huge in knowing if you're really called to be an entrepreneur, because there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainty in being an entrepreneur. And there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainty with a lot of things in life when you're starting something new. And I feel like life kind of revolves around some of these different phases, but whether it's a new profession or career or you know, starting a new business, whether it's, you're supposed to move to a new place, new location. If you're going to take that risk and pursue that new relationship with that individual, if you're supposed to, stop doing what you're doing to take a maybe a mini sabbatical, right? Stop working. You got some savings, put to the side, and you need to kind of think for, 4 to 6 weeks of what direction you want to go to, in life. Number 5, where there's that starting a family, right? And pursuing that if you're in a relationship and you've been afraid to do that because you just don't make enough or don't do this, but you want children. Like there's so many things in life where we need to take the risk and just embrace the unknown because, that's life. But when you embrace the unknown, you start to realize there's other people that will start showing up in your life that are walking that same path. And it's always easier when you can bounce ideas off of people when you guys are all on the same path. You start realizing, the road less traveled is actually traveled by more people than what you think. But you have to jump on that path first. And at the beginning, it might seem lonely, but people start to show up real quick when you jump in. All right. The 2% mindset is this: liking change. Okay. Living without limits, abundance, having an abundant mindset, act in spite of fear. And this is huge because so many people don't want to take the action. But guess what? It's not that entrepreneurs are not afraid. It's that we don't let fear stop us in taking action. So if you've been afraid to take action on something, and you need to take that step in order to see the next phase or next chapter come, in your life, then guess what? Stop living in fear, start living in faith, take that action and go. Because without doing that, you're never going to see anything fulfilled. You're always going to sit on the sidelines. And guess what? You're going to see life pass by you. And before you know it, your life's over. Do you really want your life over that quick? Because life happens quick. Life happens super fast. Think about that. Getting the most out of life. 2% mindset. I want to squeeze every ounce of the juice from the orange. I want to squeeze all the oil. I want to get as much as I can out of this life. And so in doing that, for a lot of people, myself included, is pursuing the path of entrepreneurship. Okay. So here are the 10 signs. Number 1, you are a self-starter. That's a telltale sign that you are called to be an entrepreneur, which is awesome. I might go through these fast. Some of them I'm just going to hit. Other ones, I'm going to dive deep into them. Okay, so number 2, you are comfortable with risk and stepping out. If you're comfortable with risk, then you're probably called to be an entrepreneur. You probably purposed, in your heart long ago that you need to own your own time. You need to own your own thing because that gives you that sense of fulfillment, of happiness. Okay, here's the thing. It's almost like life happens and you grow into becoming comfortable with taking risks more and more. I know in my life personally, with how I grew up and living, in my early childhood in an abusive household, and then in my later childhood and teenage years, my mom was a single mom. Obviously, we had people that would support us and other things like that. But she raised me and my brother on her own, and so. I guess I was so comfortable in just doing what I needed to do to get by and to get going that, I grew my risk tolerance at an early age. And so when I got to college and when I got to traveling and doing things, I was just like, well, life's been a risk, my whole life's been a risk. I could have been a statistic, right? I could have been, drugged up and an alcoholic and followed the steps of, some people in my own family, but thankfully I had some men mentors in my life early on that I actually sought out, as a 12, as a 13-year-old, because, I was looking for that father figure. So thankfully, it could have been in a gang, it could have been in something else. I was directed and thankfully was, in a church. So the thing is, I was so comfortable in growing up in just a place of just uncertainty that, being an entrepreneur and making my own money, I had already, if you read my blog, if you go to damianmartinez.com and you go to the About section, it's a pretty lengthy read. It's about 15 to 20 minutes. You get to learn a little bit about more about me and my bio, my background. But you'll see that I started raking leaves at 10, 11 years old for $5 a bag just to start making money. And I would walk around the neighborhood knocking on doors, and people would say, yeah, you can rake my lawn. And I'd make 10, 15 bucks off, a lawn. That's literally how I started. And so, being comfortable and taking a risk, you grow into that. But there comes a breaking point, a threshold where you're like, I need to go all in. There's no just being knee deep or ankle deep. You just got to just dive into the pool. Okay. Number 3, you're a problem solver and a critical thinker. So if you're in a work environment and you're always thinking of how you want to solve things or how you would do things differently, probably another sign that you're called to be an entrepreneur down the road, if not sooner than later. Okay. Number 4, you like being in control of your time and your decisions. So if you're doing something that you see is actually more efficient and more effective, but you get irked when someone says do it differently, another sign, time to step out. Number 5, you like making your own money on your own terms, right? So that basically means you enjoy making money. There's nothing wrong with that. But you don't want to be limited by 30, 40 hours a week, and making 1.5, a time and a half in overtime and other things like that. Like, you're like, no, I'd rather, if I'm going to put in 40 or 50 hours, I want to make as much as I'm able to in that 40 to 50 hours. If you're starting to think like that, that's another sign. Number 6, you don't feel like you fit in and always find ways to improve things. And so this is part of entrepreneurs. They're cultural misfits. We're cultural misfits because, we're not just going to be, your assembly line worker, just, clocking in, clocking out 40 hours a week for the next 40 years. That's not what we want to do. We want to create the assembly line. We want to create the product. And I feel like real, life-giving entrepreneurs, because there are entrepreneurs that suck people's blood.
I want to suck your blood.
In one sense. But the life-giving entrepreneurs, we want to see our employees and other people around us thrive and succeed as well. Okay. Number 7, you are hardworking and have a strong work ethic. That's self-explanatory. If you're not working hard in this, then you're going to go broke and you're going to need to go get a job so you can make some money. That's just the bottom line. Number 8, you're a visionary. You're a visionary and you enjoy creating. Okay. So you enjoy creating things. You see the future. You're sometimes in your mind, like 3-6 months ahead, 12 months ahead, you see what's to come and you're working towards that. You're trying to compress time so you can make that happen quicker. Number 9, you take fast action. That's a great sign of your call to be an entrepreneur. You don't overthink things, right? There is a time and place to critically think and be aware, but there's also times where some of my best decisions happen in under 3 seconds. I just knew it. I felt it in my gut. I went after it, and I've never been wrong in that. So when you have that gut check, you have that internal instinct, trust that, okay? Number 10, you're tenacious. That means you're determined. That means you're just not going to give up when things go slack. Like, it's okay if you don't have things figured out. That's part of life. Life, you're not going to have figured out. But until you get to the point where you're okay with making decisions and not sure if it's going to work out in your favor or not, then you're just not going to be a great entrepreneur, And at the beginning, when you're an entrepreneur, it is not about just making the money. That's a part of it, right? But it's also about finding a sense of fulfillment. It's about serving. It's about giving value. The number one thing I learned from one of my business mentors is entrepreneurs, we solve problems in the marketplace. So if you have a solution that is going to bring resolve and hope, right? And a sense of happiness, and people are like, that's a great idea because it solves X, Y, and Z problem, then you're on your way to doing great things in your life. But one of the number one things about being an entrepreneur is simply that you solve problems in the marketplace. Okay. And so with that being said, I hope that if you're hearing this or you're watching this on a couple different platforms, that you understand, number one, whether you're called to be an entrepreneur and employee, there's nothing wrong with either or. Nothing wrong. Okay. I made that very clear. Hopefully you hear that. You hear my voice. You hear my heart on that. Number 2, if the title irks you though, then that means you might have that small seed in you that you're probably called to be an entrepreneur, or you just don't like thinking the fact like, I can do other things and still be an employee. Sure. That means you're still called to be an entrepreneur, but you enjoy doing your side hustles and keeping your main thing the main thing, which that's okay too, right? And then number 3, my purpose in this episode was to help awaken those who have been asleep on the sidelines of their dreams in their life. There's too many people that live in their comfort zone and they don't go beyond that and expound beyond that. And if you're listening to this, I'm calling you out. It's time to wake up. It's time to go. It's time to take risk. It's time to do what you know you need to do and stop being like a little punk living on the sidelines of your own life when you know the dreams that are in you are supposed to be already being birthed out of you. And with that being said, this is Damien with the Bullseye Hustle Show. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from the Bullseye Hustle Show, give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter at Bullseye Hustle, and follow us on Spotify at the Bullseye Hustle Show. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.